for us to learn. And so let's turn it over to Amy.
All right.
Hey, thanks for having me. I think you read a little bio that Jerry sent out, right?
Yep.
Right.
Mhm.
So I worked for the AP for 30 years as a staff photographer. I worked for the Columbus Dispatch for 2 years before that. I was actually a history major in college, but I always did photography. I did it in high school and did it all through college, and it was the great passion of my life, really, to do it. My first camera, which I wanted to show you, was the Polaroid Swinger,
All right.
$19.95. Got it in the fifth grade as a birthday present. And then I wanted to show you guys, this is, I don't know if you've ever seen this. This is the first, weighs a ton. This is the first professional digital camera.
I am jealous.
It's called the NC2000. It's a brick. It was a combined effort of Kodak, Nikon, and the AP to make a professional digital camera in 1994. And this costs $19.95 if you remember the commercials. This costs $18,000.
Wow.
The disc in these things is actually a hard drive. It's a spinning hard drive. So if you drop it, you lose all your pictures. For instance, at the Masters, there used to be a tower on the 18th hole, and whoever shot that position had to take their disc. You're up about 20 feet in the air and look down below you at a runner standing down below you and just drop your pictures and hope the kid caught it, or that was all gone.
Wow.
I started
Or you
out.
had a new runner the next day, huh?
Yeah, really. Well, by then it was the last day, so perhaps they didn't come back the next year.
I started out with a Swinger and got really upset when they quit making film for it.
I know. I wish I could have film for it. It was great. And if you ever go on YouTube, you can watch the first commercial, which has a really memorable little song to it, and it stars Ally McGraw. It's kind of funny. So I'm going to share my screen. Basically, when I usually show my, I do a little talking and then I let my pictures run with music, but Peter and I did a test and the music sounds all wonky. So I'm going to try to talk myself through it. I've never done this before, actually. So please ask questions as we go along. You can type them in that chat and I'll stop and we'll talk about it. Some pictures I'll just punch through, some I'll have some stories. So share screen. So let's see. Hey, got one more. So if I get rid of this, Peter, I go to that.
Just launch one of your programs.
Yeah.
So you're seeing the picture, right? You're seeing the dogs? Actually, you know what? I don't have that chat window up. So I should have this chat thing up here, right? Sorry, guys. I'm a rookie. And I hear someone's mic walking away there. Hey, Peter, how do I make the mics turn off?
I'll take care of that.
Okay.
You may have to turn yours back. Well,
Okay.
Amy, turn your mic back on.
There.
Okay, now we can hear you. Nope.
Now do you hear me?
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
You still hear me?
Yes.
Yes.
All right. And you still hear me. And you're seeing a picture of dogs with funny hats, right?
Yes.
Yes. You can start your presentation.
Yay! Okay, so I've been doing it a long time. I shot Michael Jordan in college. Dan Marino, when he was still a college player. This was him winning the Maxwell Award. 1985. Tiger Woods, when he was an amateur this was his first Masters. He was playing for Stanford. That's his dad, obviously. Been around long enough to shot Jack Hanna when he first started at the Columbus Zoo as the director in the late 70s.
Great shot.
Thank you. I put them up on some rocks because I wanted all their heads close together, which is kind of a theme for me for portraiture in general.
Beautiful.
Thank you. Sean Penn, when he actually dated Madonna, this was at a Mike Tyson, Michael Spinks fight in Atlantic City. That's me on the right, when my hair was still brown. Geraldine Ferraro in 84 at the Democratic Convention in San Francisco. That's me on the left. Can you see my cursor?
Yep.
Okay, there's me. We used to work out of darkrooms like this. This was at the old St. John Arena in Columbus with the then AP photo editor in Columbus, Brian Horton, and myself and Charlie Arbogast. We were college students. And we turned this janitor's closet into our darkroom. There's our transmitter, our typewriter for captioning, which he typed on caption paper. We had to drag out this door out into the hallway, like the concourse where people are buying food and things to type our captions. It was pretty tight. And of course, over the years when we went digital, we just worked off laptops. This was at the Olympics in Athens. And then you send pictures out from the field, right, from your laptop. Now, actually, since I left the AP in 2012, they can transmit pictures right out of their phones, right out of their cameras, which is pretty cool.
Yep.
I photographed every president since Carter, Reagan, Bush, and Ferraro at the vice presidential debate. This was my picture that was in the AP's Pulitzer package where we won the Pulitzer in '93 for campaign coverage. This is Bill Clinton's first convention with Chelsea when she still all had that crazy hair. Bush's first inaugural. And then Obama. This was here in Cleveland. I don't know if you remember or not, but the night of his first, before his first election, he did a rally in downtown Cleveland and Springsteen played. Yeah. I just love the look on his face, like such a proud father at that point with his little girl meeting Bruce. This is sort of to show you how a story evolves. I was at the Belmont Stakes in New York, and Reagan died. So I was sent to Washington to help cover Reagan's funeral. So sometimes you sort of follow a story through. I mean, you're doing one thing. They put the flags at half staff. That's the point of this picture because Reagan had passed away. And then this was kind of neat. I was the only photographer in front of the Capitol when the procession came up, and it was just a beautiful day. And I was sitting under a tree and find my spot. Had to then stay stationary once I got there. And mostly what I remember is the sound of it, the clip clop, clip clop, clip clop of the horses as they came up with the whole carriage and all. It was really, really amazing.
And the unfurled flag.
Yeah. I ended up transmitting my pictures right there from the lawn once his casket went in. So you follow that story along. You think about what's important. The rider, or the horseless rider with the casket, Nancy waiting at the top of the steps. And then right when the casket went by, she just reached out, just she couldn't help herself.
Perfect.
Yeah, I like that space between the flag and her hand. And then we photographed inside. We took shifts as an AP crew inside the rotunda because this went on for, I think, days. Then to the church for the actual mass. And then you're looking for them coming out of the church see Nancy's up in the top corner. These are all little elements that help make a good picture. So not only do you have the color guard and the casket, but then you have Mrs. Reagan. And then you're also looking for famous people at the service, Prince Charles and the then Prime Minister Margaret Thatcher. So you're at a horse race, and the next thing you know, you're doing all this. I covered Live Aid, that huge fundraising concert for famine in, what was that, 86, 87. It was from 8 in the morning till after midnight in London and in Philadelphia. And it was a ball, an absolute blast. Their camera platform was right up at stage level. So a couple of the performers actually came out and stood within our area. And one of the neatest things about it is you could turn around. I should have had a picture of this in here, and you could see the crowd, like they were seeing the crowd, which is just something you never get to do as someone who's not a performer. The best 15-minute concerts you'll ever see are these halftime shows at the Super Bowl. Springsteen, Diana Ross, I don't know if you remember or not, but a helicopter came and picked her up and took her away right out of the middle of the Super Bowl football field. Jagger. And the most fun one I ever did, which was Prince in the pouring rain in Florida. So I don't know if you guys remember or not, Prince singing Purple Rain in a deluge. It was like shooting pictures in a shower. It was really, really remarkable. I mean, we were soaked. A lot of it wasn't fun, but this was pretty amazing. So you shoot things in different ways, right? Shoot it for reaction, for rain, and then for what the lights can do in the rain. I got to go to the Sundance Film Festival, and that's me over there. You usually have to shoot like these rope lines. So Jimmy Fallon came over and hung out with us for a minute, but I also had a chance to shoot some portraits. So you'd get like 15 minutes with somebody who was in a movie that you'd go to a house or I actually shot Robert Redford in like a bar, and they'd give you a little space. Like they gave me this area on the roof that just had a hot tub and just enough room to squeak around the hot tub. And then the actor comes in and you've got like 15 minutes to do something, and then they go. So he was a good gamer. He made, that's actually a t-shirt. That's not him.
Yeah.
Or Tilda Swinton, I had to just shoot in a courtyard of I think it was a school. But her eyes were so beautiful, the portrait was really more just her face.
Yeah, beautiful.
Thank you. Or these guys, Sarah Jessica Parker and Dennis Quaid and Thomas Hayden Church, they were in a film together. I was their last shoot of the day, and they've been doing this all day. And we were in the basement of a bar, and the basement was all black, like those walls you see behind them. So I had to throw 2 lights up really fast, because then they were going to come, and I'm pretty fast. So I made probably, 25 frames. And I was like, that's it. And they were like, you're done? And I said, yeah, that's it. Go. And Dennis Quaid actually jumped up and leapt over this thing they're sitting on. He came over and kissed me on the cheek and said, I'm going home. And I didn't know this, but his wife was just about to have twins, or just had twins. And he just couldn't wait to get out of there. So I made a friend in Dennis Quaid for the afternoon. Or Dennis Hopper. Just another straight up portrait. You have 5 minutes, and what are you going to do with the guy? 1 light, and that was it.
Gorgeous.
Photographed the king and the fall of the king.
Yep.
And the king of pop. This was at Clinton's inaugural ball the first time. And the Queen of Soul. Helen Mirren, who won the Oscar for the Queen. And the actual Queen, which I got to do I went to a horse buying trip. She used to go to Kentucky every year and buy horses. It was probably the easiest assignment I've ever done, because it's the Queen, so you kind of do what the Queen wants you to do. And every day we had about a 15-minute availability, and that was it. So one day we set up outside of a church, about 5 of us, and she came out and she waved, and then they made us leave. And another day she was at a horse farm, and we stood in one spot, and she came out and they had a little colt. She walked over and, communed with the colt, and then they had us leave. So it was really awesome to see her, but pretty simple. And then American royalty. This was actually at a basketball game, an NBA playoff game in New York City, the Knicks. And I sat, you've probably seen photographers at basketball games sitting on those end lines. So I was the last person in the line. And I could have just reached out and touched JFK Jr.'s knee. That's back when he was dating Daryl Hannah. And I have to tell you that he's probably the most handsome man I've ever seen in real life. Just a remarkably beautiful looking man. I photographed the Pope, actually twice. This one in St. Louis, and then the next Pope I shot in New York. And then Mother Teresa. I mean, these are two of the people that almost seem like you could just sort of stick your hand right through them. You know, they're not quite real. She came to Norristown, Pennsylvania to come to one of her mission sites. It was really neat to get to be there. Black and white film days. This is Emily Hughes from her long program where she won the gold medal at the Olympics in Torino in 2006. And to make a picture like this, you don't just make this picture, but you go to practice. And these are my notes from practice. For the one on the right is for a Japanese skater named Asada. The one on the left, I can't read whose that is, but I would draw out their routines. And I'd make circles and say, here's jump number 4, and here's a great split jump. And so, for instance, to make that picture, there were 4 AP photographers covering this event. Whoever was in position like number, let's find out where it is. Here it is right there. This position, they knew about halfway through the program, she's going to jump right there, right at you. So there's a lot of preparation in this kind of coverage. Some things are glamorous, like getting to cover the Oscars. You have to get all dressed up. This is how many people the AP uses to cover an Oscars. Between technicians, photo editors, and photographers. It's usually just in there are only 4 photographers. The rest are photo editors and technicians. A lot of times it's not so glamorous. This is the end of the Super Bowl where I shot Prince in the Rain in Florida. That's me. We were soaked. But you definitely bond with your teammates when you have to go through this sort of mutual suffering. So I like to shoot a lot of feature pictures. I'm a generally happy person. And so I'm just going to show you a series of feature pictures first. I was in Chicago for the World Series. I don't know, I guess it was the NLCS, whatever, the League Championship Series, whatever that one was. And I decided every morning I was going to go out and shoot a feature picture that was worth the wire. So I had seen this sticker on this building, and I just found a spot with a long lens, and I just let people walk by until I found the right guy. This one was a day off in Philadelphia. I was there at this, it's like the West Side Market of Philadelphia. And I went there with my mom, and we saw this little Amish girl sleeping in the bread cabinet. It must have been really warm. And, you know, they get there so early to set up. So I actually said, oh my God, what should I do? And my mom said, go get your camera. So I left the building and I ran 2 blocks down the street and 3 flights up the stairs in the parking garage, got my camera, came running back, and she was still sleeping, which is great. So these are just some features. I like to make people smile if I can. I go out to Amish country a lot, long lens, and look for pictures. I like this clean background, something interesting to look at. Cows playing the outfield.
Wow.
This is out my bathroom window. He looks so bad, doesn't he?
Fat bird.
Yeah. This is an old film picture, but I always liked it. It was at a dance recital at a school across the street from where I lived in Philadelphia. That's just out on Ladue one foggy morning. This is at that Kidron auction house. Have you ever been down there? It's really great to photograph. It's round. So it's the seats are in a round. I'll show you a picture of that later. So if you'll notice in these, I'm using my space. I'm not leaving, if I'm leaving dead space in a picture, it adds some balance or weight to the picture like this. You know, I'm filling my frame with content. I like texture. This was actually the steel mill to shoot Rob Portman when he was running for the Senate last time, and just slipped away from the group a little bit to try to make a business feature. And this silhouette line really made this work against that white. And this gets used by the AP again and again and again for manufacturing or steel stories.
Where was the mill?
Somewhere downtown, if you went out, you know what, I honestly couldn't tell you. It's not far from downtown. One of the streets that runs east from downtown near the lake. It wasn't a big facility. I know it's a weird place for it. It was near where the old White Motors used to be a million years ago.
Okay.
Yeah. This was also in Chicago. This was one of those days I was on my off day between baseball games. I decided I was going to make a picture and went to the egg or the bean at night and found this wedding couple posing. On my travels for work, I always, on a day off, I'd always try to make some kind of pictures just for myself. This is at the Imperial City in China during the Olympics. Or Greek island I went to after the Olympics in Athens. This was in Italy. This was actually a vacation with my family in Rome. That's my cousin with his red socks. And I didn't even see that lady with the blue dress back there when I shot it. I just thought she was kind of cool later.
Yeah.
That's at a temple in Korea. The Great Wall, which is pretty amazing if you ever have the opportunity. I actually went up on my one day after the Olympics in Beijing. I went with a friend and we paid like $50 for a driver to drive us about 2 hours north to find the right spot on the wall. And we got there and it was pretty crowded. And while we were there, it poured down rain. And so we ran into one of these little guard things. And when we stopped, there was no one there. I mean, when the rain stopped. So we just walked the wall like forever without any people on it. It was really something to see. This is a spice shop in Korea. So this is just on my day off, just wandering around in Athens. My one word for going up to the Acropolis is that it's very slippery because of all the marble. Sometimes we get to do long projects. Like this was in the 90s. I got to help lead and organize and then shoot the project the AP did on child labor in America. It actually led to some changes in Congress about child labor laws. But these are my pictures of, this is just out by Bowling Green. These kids pickling cucumbers. And they're just out in the field all day with their parents. But I was just trying to show that, you know, that these are little kids who get tired.
Yeah.
And some were in bare feet in fields that are full of pesticides.
If you didn't say that was Bowling Green, I would have said that was somewhere in Asia.
Yeah, it was outside of Bowling Green. Isn't that crazy? She had her infant out there, and you think about the pesticides on that field and the heat, but what's she going to do? Doesn't really have a choice. So these are some of my pictures from this package. I'm sure those cucumbers were not washed. That would be my guess. But I wanted to show they were just little kids. This one I always like because of these lines. It's kind of, you know, converging lines. And then back at the little houses that they live in, they're still just kids. She had drawn a self-portrait of herself. Once again, here's those lines, right? To kind of make your eye keep going around the picture. Just a portrait. They're big into family. Obviously, they live with their families. In fact, some of the migrants I talked to that were older that had left really missed the life because they missed their families being with them every day, which I could see. So I'm trying to make my pictures different. Some are tight, some are wide, some show emotion, some show environment. You know, I'm trying to show different things to create a package out of this. I also went into Pennsylvania where there's mushroom pickers. And these kids sleep during the day and pick at night. So there were probably 6 guys sleeping in here and they board this all up so they can sleep during the day.
So, Amy, there's a question, when you talk about a long lens, what type of length are you talking about, and what would be your favorite focal length?
Well, like this is probably the 80 to 200. It's easy to carry, or it was easy for me to carry, and it gives you a nice separation between your foreground and background. I suppose if I had to go on any assignment on any day, non-sporting, I would take like a 24 to 50 or 18 to 50, something like that, and an 80 to 200. And that really kind of gives you everything you're going to need on a day-to-day assignment. You get your pictures, a different variety of looks.
Menu, it says, is sharing your screen.
Yeah, I can hide that.
Just click on hide.
I wondered if you guys could see that. Now everything's gone now.
What? It should.
And I will too. And when I do that,
because it shouldn't
I
be.
also don't see your questions when I'm sharing my screen.
Yeah, it shouldn't be on top of your photos.
That's okay, but now go back to sharing again.
Yes, that cat was on Hydra, Frida. Can Frida hear me? I'm guessing
Yes, I've been there. That's why I was asking that, because that's part of their tourist attraction is all those cats.
Yeah, it was pretty cool. Yeah, they're known for their artists and their wild cats.
Yes.
So I'm not sharing anymore, am I?
No, look what you are. Go back to your.
Go back to the.
Okay, so you know what?
If you have a question, turn your mic on and ask, because while I'm sharing my screen, I can't see your questions. Okay.
Yeah, Amy, can you hear me? Phil Balaam.
Yeah.
I wrote a question in when you were showing the Amish pictures, and my experience with the Amish is that a lot of them really do not like to have their pictures taken. It's almost I don't know what you call it, religious, but it's certainly cultural. Right. And so, what's your mindset when you take these? I'm sure you don't go up and ask their permission, but how do you feel about that ethically, and what goes through your mind with those?
What I have found is that, and this is talking to the adults, is that the adults don't mind if you make pictures of their kids, but the adults do not want you to make pictures of them.
Right. So
I'll show you a little bit later. I'm going to show you a picture I did on the Geauga County bookmobile from the Geauga Library. And I'm photographing all kinds of children. But in that case, since I'm using a short lens, I did ask every parent that had kids, and they were like, yeah, fine, that's fine. But they don't want to be in the picture. So that was also true of the child labor story. So we did some stuff out in Amish country in some of the furniture stores. And or furniture manufacturing places, they just didn't want the grown-ups photographed, but the kids were fine.
Mm-hmm.
So, and then the other stuff I do very long lens, so as not to bother anyone, like the one of them doing the hay,
right?
Because there were adults in that. And I'm sorry if I stole their souls, but it was a really pretty picture.
Yeah,
so I'm going to go back to, you're welcome, screen sharing, and then if you have a question, turn your mic on and ask me, okay, please?
Okay.
I really appreciate that.
Amy, can you hear me?
Yeah.
I had a question for you.
Okay.
Do you feel that there is something that modern cameras today still can't do that film can, or has cameras and like technologies like Photoshop completely surpassed the gap?
I'll tell you, there was a long time in digital where you couldn't get a good white, and you couldn't get, you get a blown out white, and you couldn't get a good black to save your life. You know, like either a solid black or those shades right above that.
Yeah.
And so that took a long time. But I tell you, the top of the line digital cameras now, even the iPhone, you get pretty nice at those ends of the blacks and the whites. So it's kind of caught up. I think what's missing, so you can shoot anything in black and white, right? You can do it on your phone, you can do it on your camera, you can switch to black and white. But there's something about learning how to see when your pictures are just black and white, when you're not relying on this blue sky, or somebody's red shirt. And I think certainly for anyone coming up in photography to have to shoot in black and white, to learn about lighting and texture, and the way that shapes play out in a space is really helpful. Does that answer your question?
Yes,
I think so.
yes, it does. Sorry, I'm at work right now. That's why I got to keep.
Okay, sorry. So part of the story too, I went to Arkansas, and these were girls that picked peas. They made about $6 a day for picking peas all day.
Wow.
Yeah, so you try to show different parts of the story, faces, and then with some detailed pictures. Totally changing gears, I got to cover the Oscars a bunch of times. I'd always cover the red carpet and the governor's ball. So this picture of Angelina Jolie that year, if you're a movie fan, the whole thing was about this leg. Later, that was kind of the talk of the red carpet. I like this because Brad Pitt's in the background. And I shot that from right there. And she was like, actually, she was more like here. But all these other people are shooting too. But somehow, I think a lot of people were shooting vertically, like this, or shooting tighter to get her dress or her jewelry or whatever. But I shot it wider, and it seemed to be well played. You can also read the cue card.
Yeah, I love that.
Who took longer to get ready? That's what it says. I thought you'd be interested to see how this looks on the red carpet. And the red carpet's long. It's like a full long city block, and then into the Kodak Theater. So these are pictures you make from a spot like their kid had a flat James, or flat Stanley. Kids would do that in school. Did you guys know about that? They would make a drawing of themselves, and then you're supposed to take it around and have it photographed everywhere. So I saw it and knew what it was, and his wife really got a kick out of that I knew who Flat Stanley was.
I did Flat Stanley for my granddaughter.
There you go. See, right? I did it for a friend's nephew and carried it all over the place. Took it to the Oscars, took him to the World Series. It was fun. And you shoot that from a spot like this. So look how tired I am. But there's this little hedge here between you and the celebrities, and then they can just walk right up right to you. So you're pretty close. Like that is probably a 14 millimeter lens on the zoom. Ryan Seacrest gave Katherine Heigl a bologna sandwich. It was an inside joke, and he gave it to her on this plate. That when she picked up the sandwich, there was his picture. And he told me later, he was a super nice guy, really nice to work next to. And he told me later that these spots are all assigned, by the way, so you go where you're told to go. He told me later that he had a whole set of dinnerware made with his face on them. And he'd do things like he'd have a dinner party and then serve the salad on those, so that when people got to the end of their salad, they would get this surprise. So, and at the end, he gave me one. So I don't think I have this one, but I have a different one in my living room, just on top of the VCR. Pretty funny. So you're looking for jewelry pictures, you're looking for dress pictures, you're looking for moments. And you're doing it with all these other people. It goes way down there and it goes way up the other way. And there's 3 tiers of photographers. And
Who took your picture?
What?
Who took your picture?
We also would always have one photographer who was assigned to the carpet. That year was probably Kevork Devanyan, who was one of our Los Angeles photographers. So he probably shot my picture there before it started. So this is getting ready.
Great.
And I always would get like a piece of cardboard. I would bring it with me so that I could lay my gear on this hedge, because that would quickly move from camera to camera without having to deal with it on your shoulder. And every camera was wired like this. See that wire?
Yeah.
And behind my feet was a milk crate with a laptop on it. So every time I made a picture, it would zing back into a ballroom in the Kodak Theater to an editor assigned to me. And I had a headset on here, like an air traffic controller. And I would say, it was an open phone. So I would say, okay, here comes George Clooney. And I'd be, George. And I'd make my pictures. And then I could say, that's the end of George Clooney. So then the editor would know that those 40 frames or what he has to look at, and then he, they can go on to the next thing.
Techno.
It was a workout.
Oh my God.
Every in the red carpet was like, you guys have seen that old Lucille Ball where she's on the candy line and then the line starts going faster and faster and faster. That's what it's like as the carpet goes on and the big names all start coming. It's kind of overwhelming. And I love the movie, so I loved it. But I tell you, you're exhausted by the end. And then after that, I'd always go to the governor's ball, which was like truly finding a celebrity needle in a haystack. It's an enormous ballroom with probably 600 people in it, and you're looking for 5 people: best actor, best actress, supporting actor and actress, and the best director out of hundreds of people in the dark. It's quite and you got to come and go. You could go in for 30 minutes and then make you come out, and somebody else would go in for 30 minutes and they would come out. So this was a year, I don't remember what the movie was, but their movie won, Scorsese and what's his name? DiCaprio. This is probably a publicist. So for sports, I really cut my teeth on sports. I shot sports in high school, and then it became really the bulk of what I did at AP too. So you're often shooting in a crowd like this. This was the finish line of a short track speed skating event at the Olympics in Torino, or like this. This is me. This is figure skating, I think also at Torino. And you're trying to make a picture that's different, and a lot of that comes with the planning and the thinking about it beforehand and all your preparation so that you can make different pictures than these other people. Shot a lot of baseball. This was the famous Midge game here in Cleveland. And this was the end of when the Yankees and the Red Sox played in the ALCS in, I wrote that down, what year that was. 93, and the Red Sox were down 3-0. They hadn't been to the World Series since the 1917 or something, and they came back and they won the last 4 games. And this was the final out of the 7th game. It was a ball. I got to do both ends of it, and we had a little crew that drove back and forth between Boston and New York. We just had the most fun. But then this picture ended up on this movie. They used it on the cover of their movie box, which if you like sports movies, this is a great romantic comedy sports movie. So you never know where the pictures are going to end up because it's AP. They get sold to everybody and their brother. Super Bowls. We probably see a little too much of Bill Belichick. Of course, the Browns. And you shoot a lot of action and a lot of reaction. This also was used on book covers and all over the place. In fact, I was watching the news the other night. This is the first time the Patriots won the Super Bowl on an Vinatieri kick in the final seconds. I was watching the news the other night, and the NBC national reporter had this picture framed behind her on the wall.
Wow.
Pretty crazy. So Super Bowls, you're looking also for detail pictures, again, like we had talked about. I did a lot of track. This was the U.S. Track and Field Championships. This ended up in an exhibit at the Smithsonian, which was pretty cool, about women in sports. Christian Leitner. If you know sports at all, you might know some of these pictures. This was the 1992 East Regional of the NCAA tournament, Kentucky Duke. A lot of people call it the best college basketball game ever played, and it was unbelievable. It was just each team went back and forth, and they'd make their shot, and then they'd make their shot back and forth and back and forth and back and forth. And Christian Leitner somebody threw a floor-length pass to Christian Leitner with like 0.7 seconds left, and he turned around away from me, made the shot, and then turned around and ran at me. So I think this was this might have been NC 2000. You can see how grainy it is. That big fat camera I showed you in the beginning. And the coolest thing about this is the other AP photographer covering this game at the other end was Charlie Arbogast, who you saw in the old darkroom in the janitor's closet. We were college friends. He had become our AP photographer in New Jersey, and I was the AP photographer in Philadelphia. And so 2 college buddies got to cover this game.
Wow.
Shoot winners and losers. This was North Carolina lost the women's tournament one year. Coach at Texas Tech when they won. Moments, I climbed up in the stands to try to get a clean background where I would be able to see him cut the net down, and then he did this. I know, what a goofball. Pat Summitt, the famous coach from Tennessee, when they won this one year. Once again, it's clean. This is probably 300, 2.8.
Hey, Amy, Joanne was asking, she goes, is there much jockeying and jostling for positions with all the professional photographers there to get the shot? I mean, are you fighting other people, or are you just looking for your own world?
At some things like Olympic figure skating, you would get to go into the arena at a certain time, and everyone lined up outside, and we would try, AP's 4 photographers would try to line up early because I was in position 1, which meant left corner, and I knew what spot I wanted. Same with gymnastics at the Olympics. You're outside the boards.
Yeah.
So you're supposed to be in a certain corner, and I knew right where I wanted to be. And you just wanted to be there early enough that you could hustle your butt down there and get in that spot first. But then other things like the Oscars is assigned. The World Series is assigned. The Super Bowl is a free-for-all. So it's sort of sport by sport. U.S. Open Tennis is mostly assigned. So, but something like basketball, you have an assigned spot. And because we were AP, we often had good spots. Yeah, Peter, that would help. Maybe then you could ask the questions. So you're looking for fans at games. This I just like the symmetry of it. NCAA wrestling. Or at the Masters on a rainy day, climbing to the stands to get something pretty. And I like lines, so I like this line. I like anything that keeps your eye in a picture so that when you look at this, you just keep looking at it. It's kind of like you get caught like in a drain.
Amen.
And then once again, faces and emotion. This was a Ryder Cup. This was Arnold Palmer's last Masters as a competitor. And everybody was talking about on the second day, because he wasn't going to make the cut, when he walked over this bridge on 12. It's a famous, the Hogan Bridge. What would he do? And that's the picture. That's the picture. So all 4 of our photographers had places along the way, which we just kind of scattered out ourselves. But at the Masters, unlike other golf tournaments, you cannot go inside the ropes that separate the fans from the courts. You have to work within the fans, which makes it very, very hard because they also want to be right up near the ropes. So I shot a shorter lens. This is probably the 80 to 200, and a lot of other people shot it really tight. I think they expected him to turn around and wave, kind of like Jack did. Jack Nicklaus did when he finished the British Open, but he didn't. I thought it was so cool that he just walked across and tipped his hat and kept going. It just seemed very fitting for somebody as humble and gracious as him. I actually got to walk that whole final last round with him, which was one of the best assignments I ever had.
You nailed it.
Thank you.
The 80 to 200 that you're using, is this on the Nikon platform?
You know, it's funny. I'm just trying to remember now. AP used to go back and forth. In fact, AP now just is switching everybody over to Sony. But sometimes we would shoot all Nikons, and then one year it changes all 100 people in the U.S., 100 overseas. It's all the Canon. So probably here we're probably on Nikon.
Are you guys using the push-pull version or the twist one?
Back then, it was probably the pull one, not the twisting one. Be my guess. This is kind of a funny story about being patient and paying attention, kind of like Peter has to do when he goes out to Africa and shoots animals, take pictures of animals. The tennis tournament with John McEnroe in Philadelphia, and the photographers were all sitting along one long end of the side of the court. Of course, the 2 tennis players are up by the net in their chairs on the other side. And I had noticed that this cameraman was really bothering McEnroe. He would creep up, and McEnroe would say something to him. Like, get back, get back. He'd wave his hand, and then he would creep up, every crossover, this would happen. And so during a lot of the crossovers, a lot of the guys would put their cameras in their laps and they chat with each other and stuff. And I just kept my camera up, 80 to 200 again, and just watched them. Just left my camera on them and just watched them. And about the 8th time on a crossover, McEnroe had enough, and he got up and he did this. And it was right in the heat of his bad boy era. So it got played everywhere. Actually, it was sort of funny. All I heard when I shot this were 3 frames, bang, bang, bang. And I remember I didn't hear anybody else's camera go off. And I looked down the line of other shooters, and all the guys were looking over at me with their cameras in their laps, which was kind of cool. And the next day, I actually had to go to Atlantic City. This was in Philly. I had to go to Atlantic City for an assignment, and there's a McDonald's there right when you get into town. And I stopped to get a cup of coffee. And when I came out in the parking lot, there was a series of newspaper boxes. And in the window of every box, it was all the New York papers and then the South Jersey papers, was this picture in the window. And then the cartoonist from the New York Daily News actually made it into an editorial cartoon. You guys can read that or not. And then I wrote him a note about it. And so he actually mailed it to me. And he sent me this note, which I thought was really great. Pretty cool.
Very cool.
So Kentucky Derby. Of course, you shoot features, you shoot the race, winners. This picture just cracks me up. This is before the race. O.J. Simpson, this is 2007, so he'd already done his bad deed, and he's hugging Angel Cordero. And this woman, God only knows who she is, but she totally makes this picture for me. Mm-hmm. This looks like something somebody would have created in Photoshop. It's weird. Yep. I don't know. The more you look at it, the more you could write a little story about it. Plus, she has a cross on. Isn't that the kicker? And at the Derby, too, we always got to go out in the morning, early, like 6:30, they started running the horses. So you're shooting them in the dark, essentially, watching the sun come up. It was just wonderful. It was cold. And once again, you couldn't see the horses coming around the curves. You would just hear the of their breathing, and then all of a sudden they'd pop into sight, come into the light. It was a really beautiful time to get to be there. Did the World Cup soccer. So you're looking for emotions and action. Boxing. Purdue kicker missing, and Ohio State really happy about that. So I had lined up so that I could get them in the foreground with that in the background and hope that he would not make it. And he did miss. Sorry. But my favorite sporting event, though, was the Olympics. I got to go to 11 Olympics over the years. And I love the opening ceremony. Wow. I love seeing these kids' faces. I mean, they've worked all their lives to get to maybe compete one time in this amazing event, and to see the joy on their faces. It was just, I get choked up just thinking about it. I love that parade of athletes. A lot of people are bored by it. I think it's just the greatest thing. It's the world being happy together. And while you're doing the parade of athletes, you're looking for certain athletes. Michelle Kwan was the big skater for the U.S. that year. Or Yao Ming in China. He was pretty easy to pick out. The NBA player who was playing for the Chinese national team. And then every country's flag bearer is important, so you shoot every flag bearer. And then there's always a show for the Olympic opening ceremony. This was Katie Lang singing Hallelujah. It was actually added to the show because in Vancouver that bobsledder was killed in training, and so they added this portion. And you should go back and watch it on YouTube. It's really beautiful. I'm sorry.
That means the host has not started the meeting on their side yet, and you can go through while you're waiting on them. test your computer also. Select your input level.
Oh, I don't think that's for me. I don't know what that is, guys. Anyway, there's always a show. You're shooting that. So I just love the opening ceremony of the Olympics.
Wow.
And this was the closing ceremony. It was kind of cool. They had told us that they were going to extinguish the flame by having a fighter plane fly over the arena at the end. And then as they turned off the flame, which was here, the fighter plane was going to start dumping fuel, which it had ignited. So it would be dumping lit fuel over this arena of 100,000 people. So I put my camera on a clamp on the railing right in front of me. I was like at this level, I think right about there, but on the end. And then I knew that this was going to happen. I didn't know how the picture would work out. And I kind of guessed at my lighting, and it worked out.
Damn.
It was pretty cool. And actually, they went from I know, right? So I got goosebumps thinking about it. It was so beautiful. The guy dumped lit fuel all the way from the main area where most of the events were down to Sydney Harbor, where there were other events. And so for anybody in Sydney, they could see this flame going across the sky. It was pretty great idea.
Amazing.
Yeah, it was cool. I like to shoot features at the Olympics. These are my tired mascots. This is one of my favorite pictures I've ever made. It just cracks me up. I just think this looks so done being mascots. Trampoline. So I'm just looking for different kinds of pictures. Pairs, skating, or no, maybe this was dance. I can't remember. Apollo Ono winning his 7th medal at the Olympics. That's that. Remember that picture I showed you earlier with me up in the stands with a lot of photographers? That was shot from there. So really, Olympics, I think, is really less about the actual action, and for me, it's more about the emotion of winning or not winning. This was the Olympics in Atlanta. I don't know if you remember or not. In '96, the women's gymnastics team needed this little Carrie Strug to hit her last vault to win the gold. And in the vault before this one, she badly hurt her ankle. And yet she went ahead and did the vault, and they won the gold medal. It was pretty cool. And in this case, I was inside the apparatus with the athletes. They would make a pool of 6 photographers from different agencies that could actually walk little routes within the various apparatus. And this is the medal ceremony. So you actually got to be right up near the athletes, right with them, actually. And I tell you, nothing makes you, I'm only 5'6", but nothing makes you feel more like a big lumbering lug than standing next to a gymnast. I mean, they're cut like a meat chart, right? And they're all about 4 feet tall. And boy, you just feel like a flabby giant. So I like reaction pictures.
Very gold.
It was Apollo when he came over after he won that gold, his 8th gold. And I like details. I love the people's equipment, the special skates for short track skaters. So I just put the camera down on the ground while I was waiting for them to do this race and shot that back at them. Or this was a girl from Russia who was really well known for her uneven bar routine. But I just loved her hands, all the chalk. So there's lots of little details to take in sport too. It's all picture making. It's all about putting images together, shapes in space. I covered the U.S. Open Tennis for many years, and this was in 2001. I covered the tennis, and Leighton Hewitt won that year. And I would come home on the Monday back to Cleveland, but I decided to stay so my boss was in New York at the time, so I wanted to see her. And then I was going to take a day off on the Tuesday and then do something fun and then come home on Wednesday. But this is part of a contact sheet from this disc that was in my camera of Leighton Hewitt, and the next thing you know, the Twin Towers are being hit in the terrorist attack. So I'll show you the pictures, but I'll just give you the abbreviated story that I was in my hotel room actually Tuesday morning, the 11th of September in 2001, putting my gear away so I could actually feel like I was off because I just worked 2 straight weeks of tennis. And my boss called, and most of my gear I had sent to Nikon to be clean. So all I had 2 camera bodies. I had discs that were 124 meg discs. That was the biggest at the time. And I had a 14 millimeter lens, and I had the 80 to 200. And that's all the gear I had. And I was actually putting my gear away, and my phone rang, and it was my boss saying, we think a small plane, we got a ham radio operator's call that a small plane has hit one of the towers, and you need to go. And I hung up, and then my old boss, who had retired, who lived down the street, called me right away too. Something's going on at the Trade Center. You have to get down. And I said, I know, I don't know. I didn't even know where they are. She said, go outside and take a cab. No, take a train. No, take a cab. Tell them to take you south as far as you can get, and then keep going. And so sometime while I was doing that, the second plane hit. So I got in a cab and I went downstairs, and with my 2 cameras and my 14 and my 80 to 200. And my hotel was in the Broadway area, and when Broadway turns at 7th, you could see the towers. So I kept having the cab stop, and I'd get out and make a picture, and I'd get back in again. And I didn't know. Keep in mind, this whole time, my only word was that a small plane had hit one of the buildings. So I'm just shooting what I see. I shot this. I didn't even see the people in it. It was probably that a frame is that close, but there are people in all those windows, which is just horrifying to think about. Look at this guy. But I'm glad I didn't see them. I think it would have really broken me. So I got all the way until we got hit a police barricade, and then the good fortune of my life is that I walked closer to the towers, but headed east instead of going closer to the towers, heading west, going around that way, because the West Side Highway had become the route that all of the fire trucks and all took, and the ambulances. And when the towers fell, they sort of slid east to west, and the people that died on the ground were on that side. In this picture, there is a person right there. Do you see her? There's her legs. You can see how big this cut is from the plane. And I went to the 9/11 museum a couple of years ago, and she's actually identified. So I was able to see who she was. Just a nice middle-aged lady from Brooklyn. So I was shooting, and I got within about a block and a half, and I had the 80 to 200 up, shot vertically, looking at this tower, thinking there have to be people up there. There have to be people in those windows, and this happened. So this is actually my sequence of frames. Then you can see where I kind of shook. God, it was so loud. Once again, for me, I don't know why, I remembered the sounds. I have another friend who was down there kind of in the same area I was, and she doesn't remember any sound at all. But I remember how loud it was, the crushing metal. And once this tower fell, the top of this fell behind this building, I switched to the 14. It almost felt like a basketball game. Short lens for close to you, long lens for far away. You know what I mean? Back and forth. And I started shooting this, and then I could hear everyone running and yelling and screaming. And so I just tipped down a little bit to catch the people running. And I remember thinking at the time, it's funny what goes through your head when you're working. I hope my straight up and downs are straight up and down. God, the sky is so bright and the street is so dark. I hope my exposure is right, because I can't change it now. So I just shot my full buffer on my camera, 40 frames, until I hit the buffer. And then I looked up and I saw how close that cloud was, how fast it was coming. So I turned and ran, stepped into this garage and spun around and shot just a couple frames as the cloud went right down the street. So I stayed in this garage. I went actually down in the basement and tried to catch my breath. And I was wearing like a t-shirt with a button down over it. So, and my cameras, this is so weird, but my cameras are brand new. And I took off my button down, put my cameras inside over my t-shirt, and then put my button down back on because I wanted to be able to protect my cameras and try to keep them clean. And there was a lady in the garage with me, and she was just crying and crying. And I went over and I gave her a big hug, and I said, "Don't worry, you're going to be okay." And she said, "I was in the towers, and I just got out, and I'm trying to call my son, and I can't get a hold of him." And I reached into my fanny pack, and I pulled out my flip phone, and that's the first time I realized how scared I was. My hand was just shaking like a son of a gun. And I tried to call, and I couldn't get through. So I got her number, and I said, "You know what? I don't understand what's happening, but stuff's falling down, and I know I didn't want to get stuck underground." So I came back up, and the world looked like this. It was all white, and it was really quiet, except for people still sort of scrambling. But otherwise, it was just nobody was talking. The crush of the building was gone. People flooded across the Brooklyn Bridge. And they were covered in the ash. They just coated. And then the second one fell. And I didn't see it fall, so I didn't know what was falling. So then I just ran and with the crowd, and I got a certain distance away, and I thought, I got to call the office. So I called the office, and I didn't realize at the time, but they sent all these 4 photographers down there. They thought we were all, we could have really been badly hurt. And as each person called in, I think there was quite a bit of excitement around the office that we were actually alive. So I said, I said, "These are the pictures I have. I don't know where I am. I don't understand what's going on." And he said, my boss said, "Turn around, walk with the crowd until you see the numbers on the street starting to get bigger." And AP was at 50 Rock. So, and then once I got close to that, I didn't know where it was. It was a couple miles, 2 miles, 5 miles. It was a long way. So I walked all the way back to the office, cleaned my gear up, gave them my stuff, and then they sent me back. And then I walked back along the streets where the hospitals were. Oh, when I was there too, I got 2 phone calls out. I called home. And I was like, I got my friend Jenny, and I said, I'm okay. Call my mom, call my sister, call this lady's son and tell her she's okay. Tell him she's okay. So I called the office, I called home, and then I started to walk. And once I got cleaned up, I had to go back, walk down the street, 2nd Avenue, I think I saw the hospitals on it. And I still didn't quite know what was going on. And the AP was still fielding calls I think that was about the time the Shanksville plane they were just reporting that one. But I knew how terrible it was when there were beds and doctors and no patients. I mean, you were either dead or you were fine. Didn't seem like there was anything in between. So I never got back on the actual footprint, but you shot pictures all around it. And then, oh, that's not supposed to be going on. Wait a second. Thought I took that music off of there. Where is it? I don't know where the music is, where it's coming in. Thought I took it off all these slides. There it is, right there. So this was out my hotel room window that night, looking down Broadway, the theater section. I mean, just empty, right? So then I was there for the next 11 days. I borrowed a friend's bike, my second boss who called me that morning, the retired one, and I borrowed her husband's bicycle, and I would ride the bike. It was 5 miles down the West Side Highway every day, make pictures and pick up other people's film and bring it back to the office, or discs, and bring them back to the office. So just shooting what I saw. These missing signs were everywhere. That's one of the things that kind of haunted me when I got home, is I'd go to Heinen's and I'd see a sign like this advertising like a dog for sale or something, and I would do like a triple take. This is what this powder looked like from the towers. So this was the days after. There were a lot of memorials. This is that first Sunday at St. Patrick's Cathedral. and the day Wall Street opened. The first day they let people go back to businesses around the towers. And then people went into their shops and inventoried them. And look at this whole store is just covered. So as I talked about with the Reagan funeral, some stories just kind of go on. And this, this obviously will too, kind of like Pearl Harbor. So a year later, this was a year later, I came back to New York and they had me do the 1-year anniversary of 9/11. So I was supposed to be shooting flags that were still up because people put their flags up in New York and never took them down. And now the missing posters became memorial posters. So my position was in the footprint. There was a parking garage. Imagine I'm on the opposite side of this. And I was like on the second level of the parking garage. And this is probably a 400 millimeter lens. And they just let family members down to the center place. So once again, you're looking for varieties of pictures, the scene, and then mourners, specific mourners.
So Amy, one of the questions is, does AP do a lot of editing or manipulation to the images, or are they like Nat Geo where we're told that it's really up to the photographer to capture what was there and they really don't mess with the photographer's AP always looked at it like it was a darkroom. So you can dodge or burn a little bit like you would in the darkroom, but that's it. Because the truth of your picture is really all that you have to stand on. So like this you could have boosted the contrast up a little bit in this, but you can't change content. I mean, if there was somebody's arm sticking right here, I certainly could not clone that out. There were plenty of times I've made pictures where there was something in the way and it's just in the way. You better get in the right spot when you make it, or you just haven't made your picture. So very simple darkroom editing can be done. But you've got to get it right from the start.
You better get it right from the start.
Yeah, that's why you work for AP, and that's why not everyone works for AP. Okay.
Yeah, for sure. So there's the guy playing taps, but I had seen these workers. These were actually iron workers. So I'd seen them stand up there. So I shot this, and then I think I shot that. Right, just moving along the parking garage. These people had gone off on their own. This must be where that office building had been, approximately. I always thought about this kid that he probably went to war right after this. So 10 years later, I went to Shanksville for the 10-year anniversary of 9/11. So the story just goes on. And I'm sure the 20 years is coming up next year. So the Obamas came to this. So you're looking for details and faces. We never really could see families of the victims. They were seated in a way that we would only see their backs, which was fine by me. But if they walked up along the wall, like this little girl lost somebody, kind of like this too, because these are two names that you might remember. I don't know. I just like that picture. That's sort of the flight path that the plane had taken as it went across this field. Okay, something happier. How are we doing on time? A couple more things. So this was a train trip I got to take from Chicago to San Francisco to talk about what America would lose if we lost cross-country train travel. So we're kind of changing gears here to a more happy story. Congress was going to defund Amtrak. And so the thought was, what would we lose if we couldn't take a train across the country and see the country that way? So I flew to Chicago and got on the train with a writer. And I think we took 4 or 5 days because we would get off in a city and spend the night. We did that 3 times, and then to kind of learn about the towns along the way, and then get on the train the next day, because every day there's another train. And the nice thing about that is that I could then shoot the train coming the other way and make pictures of the same train line just coming the other direction, so I could see the train from off the train and from on the train. And I liked how the landscape changes. This is just outside Chicago. The train stopped long enough. This girl, I met her on the train. She was going to meet her fiance off, so I just ran off with her, made this picture, and then ran back on before it left. I don't know why this always cracks me up. This is a train going the other direction. It looks like they're watching a TV with like black fuzz on it, like we used to get in the olden days. And we had a breakdown for a while, so they were out trying to make sure we were still going to be on time. So I'm just looking for a variety in faces and the people and the scenery, and just try to get your feel for what it would be like to take this train across the country. So here's the train going the other way. I wanted to do something with somebody in their car, and this lady was reading her bed in the evening and reading her book, and I knocked on her little door and said, "Can I come make your picture? I'd have to stand on the end of your bed." And she goes, "Sure, go ahead." Here's another stop where I knew it was a longer stop, so I was able to get off, run over here, come over this way, get on over a bridge that the train went under, make this picture, and then run back. But I like how my scenery's changed. And I tell you, if you ever have a chance to do it, it's an amazing experience, because the train goes out to places where there's not a road, there's not a sign, there's not a billboard. It's really a remarkable way to see the country. And we got to go through the Donner Pass, which was kind of cool. Or in this case, the train had a long enough stop, and the reporter, I think this was in Utah, picked the writer and us up, and then drove us. Actually, the next stop was going to be a long one. So we got off. He picked us up. He drove us to a place that I said, wait, this would be a good place to see the train come by. So this is my train. So I shot this, and then he continued on and took us to the next station. And we got back on. One more picture package. So picture packages, if you're trying to make pictures that show different things. This in each frame, like that story, I was trying to tell different parts of the puzzle in each picture. And the same with this one. This is Midge, the nation's smallest drug sniffing dog. She was part of the Geauga County Fire Sheriff's Department. Maybe you guys have read about Midge. And that's the sheriff. And that's one of her drug sniffing dogs. They got her because they found that the big dogs were tearing up cars and car seats, and they were doing damage when they were looking for drugs. So he thought a little dog would help remedy that. Everybody loved Midge. This cracked me up. She went to visit the prisoners, and I thought, can you imagine like being this guy and you're in jail because this dog busted you? You can never go back to the gang, you know? Not sure. All right, so those are the pictures I was going to share with you today. And now I have a little section on kind of the way I think about making pictures. So these are sort of my lessons. Now, you guys are all photographers, so you all know what you're doing. But these are the little things that I use kind of in my mind. I don't even think about them. It's just kind of how my mind works when I make pictures. Like a painting, you're responsible for that entire rectangle. Remember I talked about that earlier, about shapes in the space, and even dead space has a purpose. It maybe balances out some content on the other side. You're responsible from side to side, all the way across your frame.
Yep.
but you're also responsible from front to back, right? It's like your picture is a cube. It has a foreground and it has a middle and it has a background. And that, using that, sometimes you want a nice flat picture, but sometimes you really want to reach back into your frame. My dog chewed up a $5 bill. But see, I'm using my foreground and background, but I'm also filling my space with content. This picture's almost split in half like that. Or that's a pretty scene, but I thought it was better with something in the foreground. Think about your background first. For instance, I can't hear you guys, so I usually say, what's wrong with this picture? Jerry, Peter, whoever's speaking.
So I got a guy on top of his head.
All right, the Elvis clock.
Yeah.
All this crap down here. This is this is Tony Dijak, who's the AP photographer in Cleveland now. All this junk. So I took a picture of Tony, a bad one. And then I stood up on a chair and shot him this way, which gets rid of Elvis, but you still have all this junk, right?
Yep.
So instead, I just stood up on my tiptoes, same spot, shot this picture.
Good one.
It helps eliminate this junk. It got rid of Elvis. So just by positioning yourself, I'm not looking at Tony. Tony's easy. I'm looking at my background. So I had a senior project kid I mentored at Orange, and apparently I did not mentor him very well this day. Because this was the picture he turned into this pole vaulter. He looks like he's a pig on a spit there. But honestly, if he had just if the photographer who was here had just walked over here, he could have put this kid against that sky.
Yep.
And he would have eliminated that. I shot this picture of a pole vaulter in Columbus at the Ohio Stadium during state tournament one year. Now I had the opportunity to get up really high so I could shoot right down the runway, but my background is clean. It makes a good picture. Or I had the Walmart earnings were coming out on AP. We needed a picture a Walmart picture. So I knew out in Middlefield that there was, I call it the Amish Walmart. And I went out to the Amish Walmart. I found the place where the buggies would come back and forth to get to the little, if you've ever been out there, there's posts where they can hook their horses up. So then I just sat there. I had this all framed up. I waited about a half hour and I just waited for them to come by. Or this was one of my dogs at one time and I wanted to make a cute picture of him. So I found my background and I stuck him in it. So often your subject is easy. It's the background.
Yep.
Wow.
Or this picture of the Georgia Aquarium. It's the largest largest saltwater tank in the world, actually. And they have 4 whale sharks in there. So just made sure we had the right people in the foreground and just waited for the whale shark to come by. I love this picture. I didn't shoot this. Remember Bill Clinton had that cat socks? And these are White House photographers, AP, Reuters, AFP, EPA, probably Time, shooting the cat. But find your best angle. This is a very poor picture shot by the company that Orange High School hired last year. Not this year, but the previous year to shoot graduation pictures. And the quality is terrible. It's a picture off of a picture off of a picture. But this photographer stood here on the ground in front of the stage and made a picture of every kid getting his diploma from the principal, shaking his hand. And this is the picture that the school paid this company to make again and again and again of these kids. And I went, instead of standing in front of the stage, I walked up to the right, through a door onto the stage, and I stood right between where the curtains for the plays hit the edge of the stage so you're not seen. That's the same moment. Same kid as this. So you could shoot this or you could shoot that. Same kid with the principal. Actually, this is the superintendent.
Oh, wow.
So you could stand here and shoot this picture all day. One kid after the next, after the next, after the next.
Wow.
So there's an angle issue question, right? Or I had to shoot a picture of for AP. It was, I think, something about employment numbers were coming out. So I happened to drive by this McDonald's that was hiring. So this is basically a headshot of a McDonald's. But I just got out of the park somewhere and I walked over here and I watched the angle as I got closer between this sign and this flag. Because remember, this is a story about employment in America. And I made that picture.
Much better.
Much better. So it's just taking a moment to make sure you fill your frame with the proper content from an angle that best tells the story.
Beautiful.
This is Tom Badiak, who does Funky Winkerbead. And you could shoot him drawing like that. And then I realized I can't see where his pen is touching the paper. So I just switched to the other side. For artists, I like seeing that moment right there, where he's actually drawing something, rather than where it's obscured. Low angles. This picture cracks me up. It's from a college basketball tournament. You can shoot from a low angle. This was a GoPro under a Mayapple. Or from a high angle. I like to think that it's nice to shoot the world sometimes from a dog's point of view or a giraffe's point of view. Because everybody sees, all the rest of us see the world from between about 5 feet and about 6'5". So it's kind of nice to show people an angle they're not seeing every single day.
Yep.
So a low angle of my dog or high angle. I mean, there's something nice about either one. Low angle of the puppies or high angle. I know I'm putting this one to death, but I just love these pictures. So let's say you had to shoot a picture of this building. Okay. So you're basically, this is like a headshot again of this building. So if you walk to the corner, you can shoot at an angle, you could fill your frame better, right? But wouldn't it be nicer if somebody was walking by? Which they are. And then if we go across the street, there's somebody on a bench with a dog, or just the dog and somebody walking by. Or you could frame the building with the greenery in the park. Or even tighter. You could go inside. Go from outside. This is a good lesson for anybody that's a photographer at any level of their career, I think, is to pick an inanimate object, a mailbox, a building, and shoot it, and then shoot me 8 different pictures to show it in 8 different ways. That's teaching yourself to see. Don't always stick your subject smack in the middle. There's a nice way you can, I don't know, it just makes a more dynamic picture. Someone's when they're kind of off to the side, but you've got something over here to balance it. This is the guy that owned the company that makes skee ball, but I love, once again, this circular pattern that this makes. That's Don Featherstone. He's the guy that invented the pink flamingo. He was a college kid and he was working for this company that made plastic yard art. And he came up with the idea for the pink flamingo. And then over time, he ended up buying the company and owning the company. And he was such a gamer. He was the nicest guy. He just died, I think, last year. And this was used again and again with his obit. I don't know. He probably got a kick out of it. But in the warehouse, he let me make like a box out of shipping boxes of pink flamingos. And then he laid on the concrete floor and we filled it with flamingos. And then I stood up on a ladder and shot this picture. Much to his credit. So then you got to decide, do you want to shoot wide? Do you want to shoot tight? So the wide for the mushroom kid really makes more sense because you want to see this environment that he's sleeping in and living in every day. Tighter with the 8200 made more sense with this girl and her determination, her little shirt. Oh my God, that little dirty shirt and her little arms and her eyes on the cucumber with the background dropped out. Better keep that longer lens. Or here's the Kidron auction house, wide to give you a sense of what the arena looks like. And then there's that tighter picture. So you have to decide what story you're telling with your picture. Tiger Woods wide off of a tee or Tiger Woods tight. That's probably a 400. Nothing like available light. This was James Dean's birthplace. Shot really early in the morning to kind of give me some moody lighting. But this is the military cemetery. I shot this for Memorial Day. I went down before dawn. What is the name of our military cemetery south of here? You know what I'm talking about, the real big one. But anyway, look how the light just creates that first morning light made that line. I mean, that's just gorgeous.
Yep.
We can't do that. Only the sun can do that.
That's right.
I had to go to Kent State for one of their anniversaries, and I'd never been down there for the anniversary of the shooting. I'd never seen where the students had been killed, and I drove down before the anniversary to see where it was, and I didn't know they were killed basically they were killed in a parking lot. And I thought, well, how are you ever going to make a picture of these four? These are where the 4 students were shot. How are you going to shoot that with this thing full of cars? Well, the Sunday before the anniversary was Easter. And I thought, well, it's Sunday and it's Easter, so school's out and nobody will be on campus except for this one guy. So I went before dawn. I tested it out. I took a 16-foot folding ladder, and I knew about the spot I wanted to be in, and I just hoped that there were no other cars in that parking lot, and then I just waited for the sun to come up. So just like the Sarah Hughes figure skating picture, it takes planning. Available light, open shade. You guys all know about that. Bright shade. Nothing's prettier.
Yep.
Like to use my environment to tell a story.
Wow.
Yeah, the Browns had one preseason game at night one year, and it was a good stormy sky. And so I think it was right before the game started, I went up high, shot this. There was only one chance to do it. It was in the summer, right? So you get a great sky at the right time of day. So this is just using the environment around a scene. But this was a story on how farmers were suffering from incredible rain we had about 5 years ago in the spring. And I didn't need to see his face. I mean, I figured this field told me kind of what I needed to know. So just using my environment in a picture. This was that Amish bookmobile. So I was standing on the hood of my car to get an angle that would put the bus just slightly below me, and I could see the farm behind. And it would give the road kind of a better, if I stood on the ground, this all kind of ends up at the same level, right? If I stand on my car, this comes in at an angle. Does that make sense?
Or hood.
Yeah. I was on the roof. I had a big dent in that car too.
Good.
Horizon lines. I hate that when people, because they tend to, with that autofocus in your camera with a little dot in the center, people put their subject dead in the middle and they put the horizon line dead in the middle. But in most cases, move your horizon line. Stick it at the top or the bottom. This is Monticello. And this was the fish pond that they'd stock that they could actually get food out of. So put your horizon line at the top. It just becomes more interesting. Even at a political event, this was Obama at Ohio State. I mean, by putting him at the top and giving them weight to all these iPhones or these phones is kind of cool. Or put your horizon line at the bottom. But get it out of the center, unless you're doing this, which is not my picture. This is one other one I stole off the internet. So you're doing some kind of reflection. But otherwise, it just kind of doesn't work. Quick section on portraits. Find your background. Stick the people in it. Find your background. The people are easy. The dogs are not so easy, but the people are easy. So I found the background, put them in it. Longer lens, 80 to 200 again, just enough to knock the background out. Here's my tip on making a good group picture. Also, I wanted to use my Lego. If you stand here, shoot that, you're going to make that. Your eye level. I stole this off the internet too. I mean, there's so many things wrong with this picture. But if you stand up on something, the way the angle works out, I set this up for someone, there's me, and then had them stand up on the work table. All of a sudden, you can see every face. Do this at Thanksgiving or your next holiday. You'll be a superstar in your family. Just stand on something. And all of a sudden, you can see every face. Plus, women over 40 like that because it eliminates the problem with their loose necks. Environmental portraits, made famous by Arnold Newman, putting a subject in a scene with what they do. Cartoonist Jenny Campbell or Jack Hanna. This was a woodshop teacher at Orange, so I stuck him in the logs. Or the guy with the skee ball company. Or this was a family in a homeless shelter, so I wanted to see their environment with them. You could do close-up portraits, which is really all about people's eyes. This is the director that did Night of the Living Dead. But it's about them looking at you, that face looking at you through your lens to a screen or a print, even with your dog. And then there's candid portraits that you could take within a moment at a wedding, at a graduation, on the red carpet. Still a portrait. That's my new grandniece. Detail pictures. I love little detail pictures like the runner's shoes or just any of these things that also tell a story. These are hops at the Great Lakes Brewing Company. Look beyond the obvious. I was supposed to take pictures of this picture, whose name I've just lost. I had it and I've lost it. It was his debut in the majors, and he was supposed to be this big deal. So you can make this picture again and again and again and again. But I walked around. I shot him from behind home plate, shot him from the outfield with fans watching because he was out here, number 37, before the game, warming up, and then shot him post-game, being interviewed in the dugout. So try to find different looks of what you're shooting. Or the bookmobile, where we talked about the Amish kids. So I wanted to see where they go. The bookmobile goes to a farm. That's the lead of my story, right? And the Amish kids are voracious readers, so it's extremely popular. And none of these kids minded that I was shooting their pictures. So I'm shooting wide, I'm shooting tight, trying to get a variety in my lens length, and also trying to get a variety in my images. And then walking home. I'm almost done, guys. I hope somebody's still there.
Yeah.
So this is a funny story. I used to have to cover Miss America when I worked for the AP in Philadelphia, and you'd go down there for 2 weeks. It's actually 2 weeks of preparation and pre-show shows. And they used to always take the women out to the beach, and we'd make their pictures frolicking in the waves and things like that. Well, somebody said, let's make their picture with this lifeboat. So the cops that were with us to keep people away came and flipped the lifeboat over, and these two homeless guys were sleeping under it. Right? So the photographers were here. Like, there's one there. There's some over here. I came around here and quickly made this picture before they got them up. Here's all the Miss America people. And here is the woman in charge of this event who was really, really mad that this was happening because, Miss America is supposed to be perfect.
Oh, yeah.
So this picture ran lots of places, and then I went on and the pageant continued, and I covered the pageant. So the picture ran in a paper. This was in Atlantic City. The picture ran in a paper in Florida, and a young woman picked up her newspaper one day and saw this picture and said, that looks like Tom, her brother, who had been divorced. He became an alcoholic. He lost his job, and the family lost track of him. They hadn't been able to find him in years. So she actually came up to Atlantic City and walked the boardwalk and found him. And brought him home and got him sober. And he got a job. AP covered him for years.
Wow.
His success, all from the silly trip to cover Miss America.
Wow.
You just never know. Sometimes it's your picture to make, and sometimes it's just not. As much as I talk about planning and everything else, some of it's just good fortune too. This was Don Shula when the Dolphins beat the Eagles in the 80s, and he became the winningest coach in NFL history. And I was the long lens person. I was supposed to shoot him. We assumed they'd carry him off the field. And I think this was our staffer who was the guy that had to go in with the wide angle lens. So I was shooting a long lens, and it went right by 325, which was the number of games that he had just finished winning. And his arm hit just in the right spot. And that was just completely dumb. I mean, it wasn't dumb luck to shoot him, but it was dumb luck to get that. It got a lot of good play. Same with Mark McGuire. I got to do his home run race with Sammy Sosa, which I know it was the steroid era, but it was one of the most fun experiences of my working career, following him to breaking what's his name's home run record. He hit number 69 and number 70 the last game of the season at home in St. Louis. And when he rounded the base after 69, I saw this sign go by. This is between second and third, and I'm shooting down the third baseline. I saw him go by, and I missed it because I didn't know it was there. I think he was like here, and the sign was there. So I thought, boy, what if he hit another one? I bet they put up a 70. So I was more prepared for it, and it made a great frame that day until the whole steroid thing came out. This was my colleague Dave Martin's beautiful picture of Phil Mickelson winning his first Masters. I'm actually over here was my position, and this is my picture of Phil Mickelson winning the Masters. So that's just one of those, sometimes it's yours to make, and sometimes it's just not yours to make. What I do today anymore, because I'm not working for AP anymore, I'm retired, is I shoot pictures with my real camera, Nikon 810, of my dogs and my new great niece. It's my nephew. I shoot nature, and I'm hoping to go to Africa with Peter. This is out the kitchen window. And I still do family portraits. These are my neighbors. But I'm still using my thoughts on it. I want all their faces close together. So what do? I pull some logs out and make the kids stand up on logs. I made a nice portrait. And I shoot a lot with my iPhone of the dogs and my great niece and nature. So that iPhone's remarkable, what you can do. This is just in the backyard. There was about a minute when this light streamed through just right. So that's kind of what I'm doing today. See my horizon line at the bottom? That's it. Is anyone still there?
Oh, yeah. This has been fascinating.
Oh, wow. I still see people there.
Amy,
great talk. Just a great talk. Wonderful. Wonderful.
I'm going to stop sharing. Are you guys back on the full screen now?
Yes.
Yes, we are.
That was just wonderful.
Thanks, guys. Thanks for sticking it out.
I'm going to rewatch it when they replay it because I got 2 phone calls in the middle of it, and I want to see it again because your photos are outstanding.
Thank you. Thank you.
I love the photos, but I'll tell you, the instructions and how you look at the photos before you take them is amazing.
That really.
I mean, that is the true talent in the whole situation. Knowing
I mean,
when to press the button is just amazing.
Amy,
this is
yeah.
when I used to cover the I don't think when he would say this. He said it. Our photo editor, when we would cover the opening ceremony of the Olympics, because we would have like 10 photographers covering it, and you can imagine with so much going on, how many frames are pumping through the system, and that's when everything was being sent digitally. So the lines could only hold so many pictures at one time. I mean, you could completely crash the system if you shot too many pictures. He called it his dynamic image indicator. He said, that little light in your camera, the dynamic image indicator, and people would go, "What are you talking about?" He goes, "That's when your brain looks at a moment and says, that's the frame." You think about every great picture, there's one frame, right? That's the right frame.
Yes.
You're trying to find that one moment.
Yep.
Yeah, I don't have it here, but I was at a photo shoot today where we were shooting this guy English garden and all his flowers. And my friend's more of a photographer than I am, and she says, "Here's your money maker." And it was a flower with a bee, but the bee was flying off. So it was like he was escaping. And she was right. That was better than the one with the bee just sitting there doing nothing.
Yeah, especially if you could stop the motion of the bee.
Yeah.
You could really, if you're shooting high enough shutter speed, you could get.
Yeah, exactly.
Lock them in space. It's sort of like that idea of the Nancy Reagan picture where she's reaching out for the president's casket, when there's that space between her hand and the top of the flag, or like your bee and the top of the flower. There's that tension in that empty space.
Yeah, I have a new camera. I'm getting used to learning.
Sometimes it takes getting, practicing a little bit.
Just amazed at your life experiences, where you've been, and the opportunities you've had. Just amazing, just wonderful.
I was very fortunate. I had a really good run. I really loved it. And now that I'm not doing it, really what I miss most, I miss two things. I miss the people that I work with, because gosh, we had a ball together. And I miss things like walking like to Jacobs Field, but getting to be underneath the stadium. Because you kind of walk in like you work there. And you're down there with the guys that are like filling the hot dog bun stand and, all the workers. And I like being down in that gritty part of a stadium, or walking up to the field through the dugout. I mean, all those places you don't normally get to go. That was pretty neat, I have to say.
What rights do you have to the pictures you've taken?
For AP, I have no rights. It was a job, and I was paid a salary with health insurance and dental and a 401k, and my pension and everything. So everything I shot while working for AP belongs to AP. Though now they've added something now where if I shoot something on my own, I can put it in their library and AP will distribute it, but I get a portion of the proceeds.
Wow.
But otherwise, the proceeds from my work, whether it ends up on a book cover while I was working, pictures I took for AP, while at AP as a staffer, I got paid the same, whether I did a bad job or a good job. But if I did a bad job, I'd never go to another Super Bowl. If I did a bad job, I'd never go to another Olympics. So your work your pictures and your ability to be a good teammate, that's what kept you active with the big boys, I guess you'd call it. So, but I don't own any of it. Though I do have access to the archive, so I can download my pictures. And they've let me give them away before for benefits, for nonprofits, things like that. They're really good about that.
Do you receive,
like for somebody's silent auction or something?
Do you receive credit for the fever pitch picture? Yours is your name? Does your name appear anywhere on the package, the DVD?
There it is. I don't think so. No, my name doesn't appear on it, but it doesn't. But a lot of times, like if I go to, when we used to be able to actually leave our homes, if I go to the bookstore and there'd be a new book out on Michael Jackson, I thought, well, let's see, I shot Michael Jackson 4 different times. So I'll flip through and see if they've used any of my pictures, and if they'll either consistently credit just Associated Press, or they'll actually credit the photographer along with the title. So, and then I'll usually buy the book just to have it. I don't know why, just because it's kind of fun, So,
Wow.
it's kind of a kick. One time we were coming back from the Masters and we were at the little airport I guess it was actually the airport in Augusta, and they had a huge wall mural photograph of a certain, I think it was a big bunker on 8 that's like taller than a man from behind. It makes a beautiful picture with all the greenery. And it wasn't my picture, but the guy I was with, it was his photograph. And so we were just walking. He didn't even know it was there, because it was shot for his, I think he worked for Reuters, so they owned it. But it was kind of neat to be unexpectedly walking somewhere and seeing this giant frame that you had shot. It's pretty cool. I loved it. I really enjoyed all of it. For me, it was just always an adventure and something new. And like I said, I love the people. And I never went to a game or a sporting event and didn't think, I'd go to a baseball game and I'd think, I'm going to see something today I've never seen before. And of course, 729 games out of 740, that was not true. But every time I went, I think, today's the day I'm going to see a triple play today. Or someone's going to hit 5 home runs. Or, I just thought something different was going to happen. I think that's why I kept it always fresh, because I always expected the unexpected. It's kind of like seeing a lot of times too, for sporting events too, for me, it's a lot like theater. It's like going to a play, right? There's a beginning and an end. There's characters, and there's highs and lows, and there's winners and losers, and a lot of emotion, and men cry, and women can leap on things and cheer. It's kind of like a play, all in a nice little packed 2 hours of an activity. I really enjoy it. And I still see in pictures. You guys probably do too, because you're photographers, but I sort of see the world in a rectangle, or I see the world in angles. I'll walk up like the flowers outside and I'll think, oh, what if I was just down there? I could just see what that would look like if I was just over there, kind of like that, how that would look. But I imagine you guys probably think sort of the same way.
But not the talent.
Could work on it.
I really enjoyed that last part of your presentation. Really interesting.
The lesson part? Individually, they're all very simple thoughts. When you think about it, they're really pretty simple. But if it just becomes part of your mindset, a part of your routine, I'm never going to shoot at this angle. I'm not going to do this. I'm going to do it that way. That's just how you end up seeing it, when you're out there working. And the more you do it, the better you get at it. Like I said, it's connecting that to these. And then some of this. You put that all together and you're a pretty good photographer. Thanks, everybody.
Thank you so much.
Appreciate your visiting.
Thank you.
Oh, thank you so much. This is great.
You're welcome. I hope you enjoyed it.
Your photos are amazing. Your life experience. I'm just saying, I'm really jealous.
You see so much more when you hear the photograph from the photographer's perspective, I think.
That's what my mom always said that too. She always liked the stories behind the pictures, what it took to get something, or what you were thinking, or the funny thing that happened, or so you think it was about the right amount of talking? So I've never actually talked all the way through one of these before.
It was great.
I loved it.
I just want to say thanks to Jerry and Peter for getting together with you and setting this thing up. It was really worthwhile.
Yeah, thank you guys very much.
Wonderful.
Very clear on tape. Peter with the beavers. Thank you all for coming. Maybe when all this COVID's over, we can visit again and actually in person. That would be really fun.
Amy,
that would be great
together.
That'd be awesome. Then I could actually do my show with music.
Fantastic.
All right, you're welcome, guys.
Thank you so much.
Bye now.
Thank you so much.
Thanks, everybody. Good night.
Good night.
Good night.
Well, good night. Thank you once again.
Take care.